come off for this way, guys. Put your hands when you're ready.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Seal Harbour. My name is Jacob. I'm one of the very lucky team members who gets to work with these amazing animals every single day. The rest of the team is coming out to do a little bit of a training session with some of our animals, which you guys will be able to watch. So I'll head on over to their desired location. We've got the luxury here at Seal Harbour to be able to take you guys in a variety of locations. You'll notice we've got our pontoon areas, we've got our beaches. We're going to get in the water and do sessions with these guys there. So all these training sessions and feeding sessions that we do, we try to make them as variable as possible because they serve a couple of different purposes. So there's things like obviously making sure the animals are enriched and stimulated, but also really important training going towards husbandry behaviours, which basically helps in the animal's health care. So I'll touch on that a little bit later. Not exactly sure what we're going to be doing with two of our beautiful animals today, so I'll have to wait and see. And I'll be able to talk you through a little bit of the training that they're doing with these guys shortly. Now, the two animals getting fed, if you guys head over this way, we are going to pretty good look. Two different species of seal. Now, there's around 33 different species of seal that you will find around the world. And these two are very, very different and found in very, very different environments, believe it or not. So the big fella over there, his name is Miles. And Miles is a sub-Antarctic fur seal. Now, when they name seals, they generally do a pretty good job of telling you exactly where they're found or exactly what they look like. So you can imagine with a name like the sub-Antarctic fur seal, Miles is found on the sub-Antarctic islands, which are the islands that you will find south of New Zealand, Australia, South Africa, not all the way down to the Antarctic continent itself, but there is actually quite a few islands which have a very large diversity of marine life down there, so that is where Miles is initially from. And Whitney with the name California sea lion, you can imagine where she's from as well. Her range for her species is actually the west coast of North America, so areas like California. But you'll find them as far north as Alaska and as far south as Mexico and areas like that as well. Now you may be wondering why these two species that are not native to Australian waters are here at SeaWorld. And there's two very different reasons again. So beautiful Whitney, she's part of the breeding program for her species. We actually have had a fair few California sea lion pups born over the years. They're a fantastic ambassador animal for some of their more endangered counterparts that you can find throughout the world. And then Miles' story is a little bit different as well. You'll see Jacko is actually giving him some eye drops in his single eye there. So Miles is actually missing one of his eyes entirely. He's one of our rescue animals. And he initially came into care down in Stockton Beach in New South Wales. It's quite a young pup. He was initially at the Taronga Zoo down there, and then moved to Sydney Aquarium before coming up here. So he's lived at a few different places over the years, but he's had quite a significant injury to one of his eyes. His eye was actually about half the size that it should be, and there was a bit of question as to how well it was functioning and if it actually caused any discomfort or pain. So not too long after that, the veterinary team did actually decide to remove that eye. And Miles is doing pretty good since. He's as healthy as ever been. He's about 150 kilos at the moment, which is as big as he's ever been as well. I think Jacko's been feeding a bit too much fish and squid. But he's got a really good appetite, really good quality of life as well. And we just make sure that that remaining eye stays in really good health, especially as Miles is getting older. He's around 16 years old now, and the life expectancy for these guys is around 20 years of age. So we're just making sure with those preventative eye drops, just to make sure that any eye issues that Miles may get in his older age are well managed. Now, I did mention on something called husbandry training earlier as well, which is a very important part of what we do. So the guys might be able to give you a few different examples of husbandry training. So we can ask these guys to open their mouths so we can inspect their teeth. We can ask them to lie down to do a full check over their body. We can ask them to roll over to inspect the underside of their body. So every day when we come in, like the guys are doing now, seals and sea lions play a little bit more rougher than your average puppy dog. So they do play with their teeth on occasion. So we will go out and check everyone that no one's got any little bites or bumps or scratches on them. And we do that on a daily basis. We'll check their flippers as well. Whitney in particular loves to play with her toys with their flippers, and she'll whack those pretty hard sometimes because she's a very enthusiastic little sea lion. So we'll check those, check their back flippers, check their eyes, their ears, basically every part of them. And then another thing we can do with this husbandry training is extend that to get more information from the animals. So that's a beautiful ventral inspection position from Miles, where you can actually see his belly under there. So from that position we can do a few different husbandry behaviours, including a voluntary blood withdrawal. You'll see Miles has got big beautiful front flippers. When he rolls over like that, there's a vein that runs on the inside of that front flipper, and we've actually been able to get blood from Miles a couple of times, which is really quite impressive. I personally don't really love getting needles. If I go get a blood test, maybe once or twice a year. And you've got to imagine these guys do it voluntarily. Miles can swim away at any time. He weighs about twice as much as Jacko. He can walk along if he wanted to, if he didn't want to do those sorts of behaviours. But these guys make it really positive. They get that reinforcement through fish, maybe a good pat, and just that relationship and time with the trainer. So it's really quite cool. We had a little session where we were doing a blood withdrawal with an animal called Rosie the other day. She was finished, she did a really good job. We gave her all her fish, we popped her back in the pool, and then she came racing back in and rolled back over because she wanted to do it again, because it was such a positive experience for her. So really cool to be able to do that sort of stuff with these guys. And then also from that position, we can actually do ultrasounds on these guys as well. Whitney has had a pup in the last couple of years, which was really quite an exciting time. She was a fantastic mum. We can actually ultrasound and monitor the growth of that pup through that ventral inspection position as well. So all these things are actually really important for managing the health of the animals. Now the other species that we actually have here at Seal Harbour are called the long-nosed fur seals. So although we don't have any out on display at the moment, we do rotate these guys between our different pools. If you come back to Seal Harbour, or if you were here a little bit earlier this morning, in our south pool, which is right with all the rock work over there, you would have possibly seen 3 of our beautiful long-nosed fur seals. So those girls are actually a species that are native to Australia, and they don't get nearly as big as the males of the fur seal species, and nearly as big as the sea lion. So our youngest seal, her name is Missy. She's a 16 kilo, 1.5-year-old little girl. She'll hopefully come out a little bit later if you do find yourself around here. And they are a species that is native to Australian waters. But there is only one species that is only found in Australia and nowhere else in the world, and that species is called the Australian sea lion. Now the Australian sea lion, again, we don't have any here at Seal Harbour at the moment, but if you head to our sea lion theatre later during the day, it's very likely you'll see one of our big, beautiful boys, Australian sea lion, over there. Now the Australian sea lion is an endangered species, which is why I like to talk about them, because they are under quite a bit of threat out in the wild. They are facing a lot of pressures. And it's actually estimated there's only around 12,000 of those guys left in the entire world. So to put that in perspective, that is like a really busy day here at SeaWorld or Movie World. All the people in the park, maybe about 12,000, that is the entire population of that species. And the numbers are going down, and it really is quite a worry, because if we lose those guys, we lose a very important species here in Australia that plays a part in the natural ecosystem. So the biggest thing that we can actually do to help prevent these numbers of seals going down is just being sustainable in how we live ourselves, in a number of different ways. If you guys go fishing, make sure you're a sustainable and ethical fisherman. Take all your excess hooks, lines, lures, things that can harm marine life home with you. Try to use more sustainable versions of items, say like coffee cups or bags and things like that, because single-use plastics are a massive issue getting out in the oceans, polluting our environment, and have been ingested by these animals as well. And another one is to try and eat more sustainable seafood that comes from a more sustainable source. Do a little bit of research, because you'll be able to get a better idea of where that seafood's coming from. It's from a sustainable source that can sustain both us and also populations of marine animals as well. I'm going to leave that message there today, guys. Thank you very much for joining us here at Seal Harbour. If you do have any questions, please feel free to come over and have a chat. I'm more than happy to talk seals and sea lions all